Well, folks, we had some technical difficulties tonight. I don't know exactly what it was, but we were on the satellite and then we weren't. And then we had to see if we were on again once we tried to uplink. And I hope we're going out right now because I don't really know for sure if we are or not. But I'm just going to continue with the broadcast as if we are. And I know that somebody will come running in from town here if they can't hear us. Most of the people here listen on satellite. The South Carolina Constitution Party's next meeting will be held in Greenville, South Carolina, at the Greenville Public Library on April 20th at 7 p.m. The library is located at 300 College Street. If you need directions, call either Mark at 803-834-0992 or Vic at 803-684-3155. Everyone's invited. You don't have to live in South Carolina. You can live in an adjoining state. Once again, that's the South Carolina Constitution Party. Meeting will be held in Greenville, South Carolina, at the Greenville Public Library on April 20th at 7 p.m. The library is located at 300 College Street. To call for information, call Mark at 803-834-0992. That's 803-834-0992, or Vic at 803-684-3155. That's Vic at 803-684-3155. Also, I'd like to remind everybody the most important vote on the Conference of the States is coming up soon in Pennsylvania. There will be a rally to support the Constitution on Tuesday, April 18th, 1995. If we can defeat the Conference of States in Pennsylvania, we can defeat it everywhere. This is important. They want so badly to hold this in Philadelphia, where our Constitution was created, and they want to create a whole new type of government by turning this Conference of States into a constitutional convention. It's exactly what our founding fathers did, folks, so show up. You must. If you have to take 3-4 days off, you've got to go on April the 18th, 1995, to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, in the rotunda of the state capitol at 12 noon. Be there. The theme is support the U.S. Constitution, untampered, unchanged. Help us, folks. Stop the Conference of States from materializing in Pennsylvania, and if we can do that, we can stop it everywhere. We have become a very strong movement, led by the Constitution Party. We have stopped it in several states already. What we do here affects all America. Take the day off. Take 3 days off. Make it a vacation. Take the family. Make a whole celebration of it. Participate, folks. This is going to be a historic event, and it'll surely be written in the history books of the future. So participate in government the way the Founding Fathers intended us to do. Remember, they warned us. They said, don't ever allow another constitutional convention to be held, because they knew how easy it was to change the whole form of government. They did it, and these guys are trying to do it too. Remember, Thomas Jefferson said, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. If you'd like some information, call Mike at 610-896-8897. That's 610-896-8897 or 610-494-2113. That's 610-494-2113. Or you can fax Mike at 215-895-1130. That's fax only at 215-895-1130. That's Mike in a rarity. Okay, let's move right along here. Remember, the conference for the Intelligence Service in Kaji is May 29th through June the 2nd. Now, if you're not a member, you can be a member, and as long as you get your oath executed and everything is complete before the conference, you can get the membership fees for the conference. Membership in the Intelligence Service for a single person is $100. You get also a subscription to Veritas for 24 issues. So, if you want to look at it that way, you're paying for your subscription and plus you're getting a membership for $50. The money that you pay for your membership funds the operations of the Intelligence Service. And believe me, we're worldwide. We put the money into special operations to get the information to deliver to you through this broadcast and through Veritas and in other publications and videotapes and things that we do around here. So the conference is May 29th through June 2nd. For a single membership, it's $100. As soon as we receive your payment, and for family membership, it's $150 for a whole family. As soon as we receive your payment, we send you your membership materials, a personal information sheet, and an oath that you must execute in front of a notary public. When we receive that oath back with all the completed information that we need, then you receive your membership package. If you don't like the oath, you don't want to execute the oath, you send it right back to us along with every single piece of paper that we sent to you, and we will happily and promptly refund your money. So, membership in the Intelligence Service is $100 for a single membership, $150 for a family. Now, if you get a family membership, every person in the family, 17 years and above, who wishes to be a member, must execute the oath. And there is no other way to be a member, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. Now, once you're a member, or if you're already a member, the conference fees are $100 for a single member, $150 for family members, that's for the whole family, if 2 family members are attending. If 3 or more family members are attending, then the fee for family for the conference is $200. For non-members, the fee is $350 per person, non-negotiable. All conference fees are non-refundable. Once that fee has been sent in, and we have reserved a spot for you at the conference, your fee will not, cannot, under any circumstances, be refunded. So understand that. Also, we need your help, we need your support, we need you to get involved in the Constitution Party. I want you to call Karen and ask her how you can be a member and get going on that. If you really care about this country, there's only one party that supports the Constitution. There's only one political party that has come out against the Conference of the States. What are you waiting for? Are you a Democrat? You think they're going to do it for you? Are you a little Republican? Do you think finally they're going to tell you the truth and put somebody in the White House that's going to straighten up this country? Oh boy, I want to see your face when you find out the truth. The Constitution Party is where it's at. It's the fastest growing party in the history of this country. Get on the wagon with us, folks. 810-674-8094. That's 810-674-8094. The fax is 810-674-8094. 673-1954. The fax is 810-673-1954. National Membership Director is Karen Scarborough. So give her a call or a fax and join the Constitution Party. You'll be glad that you did. Also, I believe that the Conference of the States has been defeated in Maryland. We've only got that from one source, so that is not final. That's just from one source that we have it. So it may be defeated in Maryland. We'll find out tomorrow for sure, and I'll let you know tomorrow night. Also, a judge in San Francisco has apparently ruled that gun makers can be held liable for whatever somebody does with a gun, and he says it's okay to sue. Well, it's always okay to sue, whether you win or not. Now, that's another story, folks. But this guy has ruled that the gun maker is responsible. So, we'll try to dig all the particulars out on that also. Also, 10 a.m. tomorrow morning in Tallahassee, Florida, the Florida State Legislature is supposed to vote on legislation 1401, which is the Conference of the States. So, if you live in the state of Florida or any place close enough to get down there, get there. You can call the State House in Tallahassee, find out the telephone numbers of people to call, and start your campaign now. If you can possibly get there by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, get there and demonstrate against this. It's important. Okay, folks, please get active. Activate or abdicate. The future is in your hands. Once again, activate or abdicate. The future is in your hands.
Pride, with our American pride, we need American pride to rebuild America and don't take us back to where we were, but to where we should have been. All for the people who've been long forgotten and just ignored again. Pride, with our American pride, we need American pride to rebuild America, and we're working hard for the fame and all. Now we're just surviving, while tax-paying suckers are what we'll become, while living on a reservation. Pride, with our American pride, we need American pride to rebuild America. So reach out your hand to help someone and learn to understand them. For we as a nation can make the mind together rebuild again. Pride, with your American pride, we need American pride to rebuild American pride. Are you American pride? Be an American pride.
In 1967, the National Education Association's Executive Secretary Sam Lambert commented, and I quote, "The National Education Association will become a political power second to no other special interest group. NEA will have more and more to say about how a teacher is educated, whether he should be admitted to the profession, and whether he should stay in the profession." 1968, Elizabeth Coons became the head of the National Education Association, making teacher power the rallying cry of her administration. She advocated that teachers organize, agitate, and strike. She also promoted the kibbutz concept. On September 23rd, she addressed the American Association of Colleges for Teacher Education and stated, quote, "The National Education Association has a multifaceted program. already directed toward the urban school problem, embracing every phase from the Head Start program to sensitivity training for adults, both teachers and parents, end quote. In 1969, in January, Today's Education, published by the NEA, contained an article called Forecast for the 70s by Harold and June Shane. Their article was a digest of many articles within which you can find the following comments. Quote, 10 years hence, it should be more accurate to term him, the teacher, a learning clinician. This title is intended to convey the idea that schools are becoming clinics whose purpose is to provide individualized psychosocial treatment for the student, thus increasing his value both to himself and to society. Educators will assume a formal responsibility for children when they reach the age of 2, with mandatory foster homes and boarding schools for children between ages 2 and 3 whose home environment was felt to have a malignant influence, and children would become the objects of biochemical experimentation. End quote. In 1970, July the 3rd, NEA President George Fisher tells NEA representatives at an assembly that, quote, a good deal of work has been done to begin to bring about uniform certification controlled by the unified profession in each state. A model Professional Practices Act has been developed, and work has begun to secure passage of the act in each state where such legislation is needed. With these new laws, we will finally realize our 113-year-old dream of controlling who enters, who stays, and who leaves the profession. Once this is done, we can also control the teacher training institutions, end quote. And you wondered what happened to your children. In September, in NEA's Today's Education editorial, one reads, quote, the change agent teacher does more than dream. He builds, too. He is part of an association of colleagues in his local school system, in his state, and across the country that makes up an interlocking system of change agent organizations. This kind of system is necessary because changing our society through the evolutionary educational processes requires simultaneous action on 3 power levels, end quote. In 1971, Rules for Radicals by Socialist Saul Alinsky is published. According to Suzanne Clark in Blackboard Blackmail, John Lloyd, Executive Director of the Kansas National Education Association, an NEA affiliate, from February 1st, 1980 to June 1984, will say that this book by Alinsky will become the NEA's Bible. In Alinsky's book, which has an acknowledgement to Lucifer at the front, he asserts that, and I quote, any revolutionary change must be preceded by a passive, affirmative, non-challenging attitude toward change among the masses of our people. He continues to say that the radical organizer, dedicated to changing the life of a particular community, must first rub raw the resentments of the people of the community, fan the latent hostilities of many of the people to the point of overt expression. He must search out controversy and issues. An organizer must stir up dissatisfaction and discontent. He knows that all values are relative. Truth to him is relative and changing, end quote. Perhaps, folks, not coincidentally, at about this time, Health, Education, and Welfare lets contract number OEC-08-08-00603-4535-010, under which portions of Training for Change Agents, 1973, by Ronald and Mary Havelock, will be developed, and in which one reads, quote, the advocator, organizer, agitator, ADORAG, and social architect change agents would receive training in value clarification. Because of his political and ego strength, the ADORAG is relatively invulnerable to the system. He's able to ride or create a crisis to escalate frictions and protests, knowledge of the law and strategies of confrontation and civil disobedience will be extremely helpful. 3 to 6 crucial school districts in one state would be identified in which inside and outside change teams would work on their projects, end quote. In the spring of 1974, the Federal Office of Education will give a grant of $5.9 million for 500 change agents to be trained at 21 institutions of higher education around the country. The Commission on Professional Rights and Responsibilities, a National Education Association brochure, number 163-04940-71, lists among the Commission's purposes to, quote, gather information about the various individuals and groups who criticize or oppose education and make resumes of their activities, end quote, and William Cooper and the Hour of the Time is way high up on their list. Schools for the 70s and Beyond, a call to action, is published by the National Education Association, and it declares that, quote, teachers who conform to the traditional institutional mode, ladies and gentlemen, are out of place. They might find fulfillment as tap dance instructors or guards in maximum security prisons or proprietors of reducing saloons or agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But they damage teaching children and themselves by staying in the classroom, end quote. In 1972, the National Education Association President Catherine Barron stated, quote, we are the biggest potential political fighting force in this country, and we are determined to control the direction of American education, end quote. Now, if you would like verification to this, see A Relic of the New Age, the National Education Association, by Robert Kagan in the American Spectator, February 1982. In 1973, February the 10th, in the same edition of Saturday Review of Education, that radical feminist leader Gloria Steinem declares, quote, by the year 2000, we will, I hope, raise our children to believe in human potential, not God, end quote. The NEA President Catherine Barron pronounces that, quote, dramatic changes in the way we will raise our children in the year 2000 are indicated, particularly in terms of schooling. We will need to recognize the so-called basic skills, which currently represent nearly the total effort in elementary schools, will be taught in 1/4 of the present school day. When this happens, and it's near, the teacher can rise to his true calling. More than a dispenser of information, the teacher will be a conveyor of values, a philosopher. We will be agents of change, end quote. National Education Association President Helen Wise addressed NEA political fundraisers and commented, quote, we must reorder congressional priorities by reordering Congress. We must defeat those who oppose our goals, end quote. Now, by now, ladies and gentlemen, you must have guessed that the core of the National Education Association is communist and Marxist in its orientation. Joseph McCarthy was right. He was right all along. And because he was right, he was vilified and destroyed. Senator Joseph McCarthy was right. In 1975, the National Education Association Resolutions Committee meets in Washington, D.C., and proposes a resolution that says no person should be dismissed or demoted because of sexual orientation. This resolution is typical of the radical types of resolutions on such subjects as abortion rights that the NEA will support in future years. These resolutions will also clearly demonstrate the hypocrisy of the National Education Association, which on the one hand will advocate the right to abortion as a matter of privacy, but then will support comprehensive sex education, which includes a virtual sex organ recital, K-12, ignoring students' privacy right, not to be exposed to this in a public school classroom with other students, male and female, present. In the November-December Today's Education, the NEA's journal publishes NEA President John Ryer's editorial called the uses of teacher power in which he declares, quote, "We must become the foremost political power in the nation," end quote. In 1976, on February the 5th, the Los Angeles Times published Richard Bergholz's article called "Teachers Group Seeks National System Like Hitler's for U.S. Schools," Reagan says, end quote, in which the future President Reagan says at a Florida rally that the National Education Association really wants, and I quote, "a federal educational system, a national school system, so that little Willie's mother would not be able to go down and see the principal or even the school board. She'd actually have to take her case up to Congress in Washington. I believe this is the road to disaster and the end of academic freedom," end quote. No wonder they tried to kill him. The NEA makes available to public schools around the nation a program titled, quote, "A Declaration of Interdependence, Education for a Global Community," end quote. And we've covered the text of that in a past broadcast of the Hour of the Time. In September and October, Today's Education publishes NEA President John Ryer's editorial called "Education for a Global Community," describing the National Education Association's bicentennial committee theme of world interdependence. In the same issue is also published, quote, "The Seven Cardinal Principles Revisited," end quote, concerning the NEA Bicentennial Committee's work, culminating in the NEA Bicentennial Idea Book regarding a reframing of the cardinal principles of education. Let me say that one more time. Regarding a reframing of the cardinal principles of education, 1918, and recommendations for a global curriculum. A report has been prepared by Project Chairman Harold Shane. In this article, there is material from the report dealing with the seven cardinal principles, including this statement, quote, "There are striking similarities of thought between the 1918 report and the present panel's thinking. For one thing, the NEA bicentennial panelists emphasized the importance of a global viewpoint. Various statements supported loyalty to the planet as well as to the nation, the need for a world view, world citizenship, and the need for membership in much larger societies, or for recognizing that citizenship is more narrow than chauvinism. The report also said educators around the world are in a unique position to help bring about a harmoniously interdependent global community." Terrell H. Bell of the United States Office of Education was a member of the NEA's Cardinal Principles Pre-Planning Committee, and he was named by President Reagan as United States Secretary of Education in 1981. In 1978, November, Reader's Digest published The NEA, a Washington Lobby Run Rampant by Eugene Methvin, in which he remarked, quote, "By the early 1970s, a young Turk faction had gained control of the NEA and launched into a full-scale unionism. When Terry Herndon became NEA's executive director in 1973, he set about building a huge political machine. What is the NEA's ultimate goal? Herndon is blunt, quote, to tap the legal, political, and economic powers of the United States Congress. We want leaders and staff with sufficient clout that they may roam the halls of Congress and collect votes to reorder the priorities of the United States of America, end quote. And you wondered, what happened to your children?
With our American pride, we need American pride to rebuild America and don't take us back to where we were, but to where we should have been. All for the people who've been long forgotten and just ignored again. Working hard for the...
Ladies and gentlemen, the Hour of the Time is brought to you by Swiss America Trading and Veritas, the best newspaper in the country. The only place that you can get the real news with the real facts, keyed to the source so that you can go out and check it and verify it and do your own research. Swiss America Trading deals in real money. They've been in business for a long time. They're the only traders of this kind that I know, and when I say traders, I mean Traders, not the kind we have in Washington, which are Traitors. They guarantee their product. They also have a buyback policy, and they record everything so that they can't promise you something and not fulfill it. And you can't say they said something that they didn't, because it's always all on tape. And before the product is shipped to you, ladies and gentlemen, you're called by someone in the shipping department, and all the terms of the trade are recorded again, and you are asked to verify whether or not you made that trade. If you verify it, it's on tape, it's sent out to you. If there's any problem whatsoever, nothing is shipped. So, it's pretty hard for something to go wrong when you're dealing with my friends down at Swiss America Trading. They've been sponsoring this broadcast for a long time. If you care about the hour of the time, if you care about your family, you owe yourself a call to Swiss America Trading. And if you don't know anything about precious metals, our real money, which is gold or silver coin according to the Constitution and the law, then you better give them a call just to find out. Or send us $1 in a self-addressed stamped number 10 envelope, and we'll send you a list of tapes. And you can pick out the past broadcasts where we have educated our listeners on these subjects, and we'll do it again sometime in the future. So call Swiss America Trading at 1-800-289-2646 and do it now. Get your hands on some real money, because when everything comes tumbling down, and I can assure you that it will, if you don't have real money, you don't have anything. And that you can take to the bank. 1-800-289-2646 is the number. That's 1-800-289-2646. Do it now. You'll be glad that you did. And folks, if you're tired of reading the same old baloney in the same old rag, and you'd like to have a real newspaper, subscribe to Veritas. Now, if you don't want to commit a lot of money, you can send us $5 and we'll send you a sample issue of number 2. Issue number 2. Take a look at it. If you like it, then subscribe. If you've heard enough right now that you know you want to subscribe, send $15 for 6 issues, $30 for 12 issues, $40 for 18 issues, or $50 for 24 issues. And we'll get your subscription out right away. If we have number 2s left over, we'll start it with issue number 2. If not, your subscription will begin with issue number 3, which will be out within a couple of weeks. So, folks, activate or abdicate. And if you activate, you're going to need to prepare, because you're going to be in the battle with the rest of us to try to save freedom, not only for this country, but for the world. You see, freedom of the entire world hangs upon the American people. If we lose, the whole world loses. It's as simple as that. So, if you want to subscribe to Veritas, make your checks or money orders out to Veritas and send them to Veritas at Post Office Box 3390. That's P.O. Box 3390, St. John's, Arizona, 85936. That's P.O. Box 3390, St. John's, Arizona, 85936. And don't forget to call Swiss America Trading, 1-800-289-2646. And do it now. While taxing such as of it will become, while living on a reservation, right? With our American pride, we need American pride to rebuild America. So reach out your hand to help someone and learn to understand them.
For we as a nation can make the line together rebuild again. Right? We sure American pride. We need American pride to rebuild American pride. All you Americans pride. Be an American pride.
In 1979, December 6th, the United States Department of Education is established. Despite editorials by the Washington Post and many other major daily newspapers indicating that there should not be a federal Department of Education. President Jimmy Carter, however, had pushed hard for the establishment of the department as a fulfillment of his campaign promise to the National Education Association to gain its endorsement of him in 1976. And with that endorsement came the endorsement of the entire fraternity of Freemasons across the country who had been supporting public education since their inception. In 1980, on July 9th, the Washington Post printed David Broder's nationally syndicated column in which he described his interview with the National Education Association Executive Director Terry Herndon at the union's annual convention. Broder asked about parents and voters' concern over the poor quality of public schools, and Herndon replied that the convention speakers and delegates, quote, don't know what the answer is. We don't have the answers. Our executive board spent more time talking about the crisis in urban education than any other topic this year, but we have no answer, end quote. In 1982, the NEA sued Suzanne Clark for her published criticisms of the labor union. She was legally defended by Concerned Women for America, and in her book, Blackboard Blackmail, which was endorsed by Dr. D. James Kennedy, she would later relate in that deposition testimony, then NEA President Willard McGuire admitted it would be accurate to say the National Education Association effectively declared war against the new right, and the lawsuit reasonably could be characterized as an example of that declaration. Dorothy Massey with the NEA admitted she maintained about 12 file drawers on the new right. But on the advice of her attorney, she refused to produce any information from those files. On December 2nd, 1983, the NEA withdrew its suit against Suzanne Clark. In her book, she quoted Kansas National Education Association Executive Director John Lloyd as stating that the National Education Association, quote, is controlled and run by a group of non-educators, well-paid professional staff who have their own agenda, which is not necessarily in the best interests of public education or of the poorly paid teachers who faithfully serve it, end quote. Lloyd is also reported to have revealed that Rules for Radicals author Saul Alinsky hired to train National Education Association staff members integrated radicalism into the union. In 1983, on April 5th, the Washington Post editorial, Political Teaching, accuses the NEA of preparing curriculum materials on nuclear weapons, atomic war, and the American arms buildup, which are political indoctrination. The curriculum is called Choices, a unit on conflict and nuclear war. In early June, John DeMars, director of NEA Peace Programs and International Relations, and Sam Pizzigatti, associate director of NEA Communications, traveled to Nicaragua and made an on-site report which compared Marxist Nicaragua favorably to El Salvador. Their conclusion states that the United States should stop its military aid to the Contras fighting the Marxists in Nicaragua. Why? Because the NEA itself is Marxist. On November 14th, United States Senator Steve Sines writes a letter in which he states, quote, "I am writing you today to alert you to a radical, big labor takeover of the schools in your community. The National Education Association, a union second only to the Teamsters in size and power, is about to seize total control of public education in America. Unless you and I take immediate action on this emergency situation, the NEA will succeed in pushing legislation through Congress that will force compulsory unionization on every public school in the country. This is not an idle threat. It is just one part of the NEA's legislative program for the 98th Congress, adopted at its July 1982 convention in Los Angeles. Further, the National Education Association has publicly boasted of its plan to seize control of the agencies and boards that decide who is allowed to teach and what is to be taught. The NEA has become the most powerful special interest group in the United States. Their lobbying has brought about a 17-fold increase in federal education spending in the last 20 years. In 1982, their contributions of $1,183,215 and their army of volunteer campaign workers helped elect 222 congressmen, a majority of the House of Representatives. But instead of using its influence to improve the quality of American education, the NEA has presided over the virtual crumbling of our nation's schools. The National Education Association distributes, quote, Combating the New Right, end quote, which is a training program developed by the NEA Western States Regional Staff. It criticizes Phyllis Schlafly, Mel and Norma Gablet, Howard Phillips, and other members of the New Right. The program tells a teacher, quote, you are a target of the far right, end quote, if, quote, you ask students to examine their values, teach sex education, ever indicate it may be okay to lie, teach about values different from those of the student's parents, teach that anything goes, or if you feel it's okay, do it. Train your students to be global citizens, teach humanism, etc., end quote. A number of NEA state affiliates will follow the NEA lead in this area and produce their own publications, such as the Michigan Education Association's far-right extremist attacks on public education. In 1983 and 84, in the NEA's Today's Education 1983-84 annual edition, you can read this, quote, the National Education Association believes that communications between certified personnel and students must be legally privileged. It urges its affiliates to aid in seeking legislation that provides this privilege and protects both educators and students, end quote. Parents, ladies and gentlemen, are not to know what communication occurs between their children and these teachers. In 1988, February 1st through the 5th, the Soviet American Citizens Summit, a New Age networker, Barbara Marx Hubbard, is an organizer, is held in Alexandria, Virginia, with a delegation of approximately 100 Soviets coordinated by the Soviet Peace Committee. According to a 1985 State Department report on Soviet active measures, the SPC is linked to the Soviet Central Committee's International Department, which was created by Stalin to carry out subversion within other countries. Interesting is the fact that the Education Task Force at the summit recommended that the National Education Association guide a global computer program. May 13th through the 16th, along with the Carnegie Council on Ethics and International Affairs, Foreign Policy Association, Global Tomorrow Coalition, International Development Conference, and others, the NEA co-sponsors the American Forum on Education and International Competence. Some of the workshop topics include developing strategies for internationalizing state curriculum, the United Nations University, 10 Years of Thinking Globally, acting locally. Will they use it? Implementing global education initiatives, the United Nations in global education, political religious challenges to global education. The National Education Association adopted Resolution C-34 stating this, quote, "The National Education Association believes that homeschool programs cannot provide the child with a comprehensive education experience. The association believes that if parental preference homeschool study occurs, students enrolled must meet all state requirements. Instruction should be by persons who are licensed by the appropriate state education licensure agency, and a curriculum provided by the State Department of Education should be used," end quote. And if that is true, what is the purpose of home education? In 1990, in October, NEA Today prints the comments of Mary Faber of the NEA's Human and Civil Rights Division, and she says, quote, "Both right-wing and religious extremists have secured bans on textbooks containing stories about violence and sorcery. And Ms. Faber recommends that teachers report anti-Satanist activity immediately to your local National Education Association. It's your best defense against what's usually the real aim of such activity, an attack on public education," end quote. Are you beginning to get the message, sheeple? In 1991, in March, the National Education Association Today published an interview by NEA staffer Stephanie Weiss with Planned Parenthood President Faye Waddleton, in which the latter expresses her support for school-based distribution of contraceptives and comprehensive sexuality education, which would begin well before kindergarten age. Well before kindergarten age. In 1992, the NEA passed resolutions supporting sex education, abortion, and homosexual rights. The NEA has a gay and lesbian caucus and spends millions of dollars supporting political candidates. This labor union is active in many areas, not strictly academically related. Now, let me give you my position on this, just in case you're wondering where I stand. I believe that adults are adults. And as far as my personal belief is concerned, moral transgressions are between the person and God. That's right. That's exactly what I said. I believe that all adults are free to do anything not expressly forbidden by the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of their state, or the laws of the community in which they live, provided they never injure the person or property of any other human being. But I draw the line in teaching this stuff to children who are below an age of understanding of what they are being taught, or the ability to discern how they are to use what they are being taught. If this is to be taught, it should be taught in the home, and not in the school by these Marxist socialists who are bent upon destroying the greatest nation that's ever existed upon the face of this earth so that they can have their one world totalitarian socialist utopian government. In 1993, on January 23rd, meeting in Stockholm, the 240 international affiliates of the National Education Association, known as World Confederation of Organizations of the Teaching Profession, and the American Federation of Teachers, shown as International Federation of Free Teachers Unions, joined to form Education International. Former NEA head and current head of WCOTP, Mary Hatwood Futrell, will be the president of EI. And this could mean the NEA and the AFT in the United States will soon merge and attempt to further their goals of nationalizing American education. And what they mean is national goals, national tests, national teacher certification, etc. And we've all seen these things happen. And then, ladies and gentlemen, internationalizing Americans and other nations' education. On June 7th, Forbes magazine published The National Extortion Association by Peter Brimlow and Leslie Spencer. In this article, sharply critical of the NEA, the authors note that, quote, as the National Education Association has gained in monopoly power, the cost of education has increased while its quality has deteriorated. Does anybody out there want to argue that point with me? If you do, I'll have you as a guest on this show, and I will pile up statistics that will bury you and the NEA in the crap that they have created. July 2nd through the 5th, at the NEA's annual convention in San Francisco, delegates approved resolutions supporting multicultural global education, abortion rights, and comprehensive school-based clinics. Resolutions are also passed advocating that teachers be legally protected from censorship and lawsuits related to sex education, including education regarding sexual orientation. Resolution B1 states that the NEA supports early childhood education programs in the public schools for children from birth through age 8. Now let me say that again, folks. Resolution B1 states that the National Education Association supports early childhood education programs in the public schools for children from birth through age 8. And concerning homeschooling, Resolution B58 indicates that, quote, instruction should be by persons who are licensed by the appropriate state education licensure agency, and a curriculum approved by the State Department of Education should be used, end quote. I'm going to tell you right now, I teach my daughter. No one else does. I can't trust them in the public schools. And I'm not licensed, and I'm not going to be. President Clinton addressed the delegates and thanked the NEA for, and I quote, the words right out of his mouth, the gift of our Assistant Secretary, end quote, referring to longtime National Education Association activist and staffer Sharon Robinson, who has become the United States Assistant Secretary of Education for the Office of Educational Research and Improvement, and who sits next to Hillary Rodham Clinton on the front row of the NEA convention. President Clinton went on to say that he believed his goals for America closely parallel those of the NEA, and he further said, quote, and I believe that the president of this organization would say we have had the partnership I promised in the campaign in 1992, and we will continue to have it. You and I are joined in a common cause, and I believe we will succeed, end quote. And he was able to say that with a straight face and mean every word of it, because William Jefferson Clinton and Hillary Rodham Clinton are both committed and proven Marxist, socialist traitors to the United States of America. Good night, ladies and gentlemen, and God bless you all.
The things are much worse than they used to be. It's a hell of a time, cause the federal gone mad. The brothers in the name, the ones in your hands. People all over in every town. Buildings on fire, burning down to the ground. Out of control, people pour the corn. Metal guns on the back behind every door. Look, looters, killers, and thieves. Now everywhere you look, it's just another disease. 300 billion people on a planet made for three. Now who's gonna set this hell down free?
Children, the earth is your prison, filled with hatred and doom. Just leaving the flowers you take from the altar, but where is the gift of perfume? No more white roses, the hate of the soldiers, when God
now crazy out of control. Cause there's too much blood in this world of dirty souls. People in the streets got nothing more to lose. Cause the federal law is making all the rules. There's nothing they can say, you're the only dirty scum. But the blue time comes if you got you on the run. Cause they want to beat you down and tear you up inside. So there's nothing more left of you, not even your pride. But you can't beat you down, now the power is you. The children of God, the light and the truth. For we are the power and the power is love. Forgiving little sins to the heart of the dove.
Into the fire, to cast out the spider, through clouds of smoke dripping through. Just lift up your shield, where they cannot reach you. Your heart is protected in truth. Believe in your own self, for the thoughts you are thinking. The light is the hope that you bring, that you
Thank you.